the #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, just made a shocking announcement, one that's already changing everything. Instead of showing up to the biggest night of his life, Fernando Mendoza made a last-minute decision that could shake the future of the Las Vegas Raiders and possibly the entire league. In this video, we're breaking down the decision that has the entire football world buzzing and why it might be even bigger than anyone expected. On Thursday night, April 23, 2026, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell stepped to the podium in Pittsburgh and did what everyone expected him to do. The Raiders selected the Indiana quarterback #1 overall in the 2026 NFL Draft on Thursday night in Pittsburgh. The Fernando Mendoza era in Las Vegas had officially arrived. But here's the thing. The man whose name Goodell called out into a roaring crowd was not there. The Heisman Trophy winner, who was not in attendance at the draft, had been expected to be the top selection for months after he led the Hoosiers to the College Football Playoff National Championship in a 16-0 season. He was over 1,000 miles away, sitting in Coral Gables, Florida, surrounded not by agents and cameras and corporate sponsors, but by his family. The 22-year-old, who was watching the draft in Coral Gables, Florida, along with his family, was emotional as NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced the selection. Now, top draft picks skipping the draft is not unheard of. The last time a presumptive top pick chose not to attend the draft was in 2021, when Trevor Lawrence stayed home with his family instead of traveling to Cleveland. But what makes Mendoza's case different is the reason behind it and the lengths the league went to in trying to stop it. Fernando Mendoza won't be attending the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, and it's a decision that hasn't particularly excited the league. In fact, the league went so far as to recruit a Hall of Famer to try to change Mendoza's mind. The NFL reached out to me. I reached out to Mendoza to maybe encourage him to go to the draft. Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning said on Wednesday, it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work says everything about who Fernando Mendoza is. Mendoza said this week that his mother, who is battling multiple sclerosis, wanted him to stay home for the draft, and he wanted to be with more than just a dozen or so friends and family in Pittsburgh. This was not a publicity stunt. This was not a negotiation tactic. This was a son putting his mother first on the biggest night of his professional life. Pittsburgh is a great opportunity and a great venue, and I'm really excited to see all of the guys walk across the stage on Thursday night. However, my mom really wanted me to do it at home. It's not easy for us, especially with the family situation, and I'm gonna have to hop on a plane the next morning anyway. That family situation is something Mendoza has been open about for years. Mendoza's mother, Elsa, has lived with multiple sclerosis for over 15 years and is currently using a wheelchair. Traveling to Pittsburgh for a draft event would have been a logistical and physical burden on the family. So the decision for Mendoza was simple. I wanted to stay and make the memory with everybody who poured into my football journey. Mendoza said, mentors, coaches, family, friends, we want to share that memory with all of them is going to be the best memory that I could make, rather than limit it to 10 or 12 people in Pittsburgh. And when Goodell called his name, there were cameras rolling in that family living room. There was no handshake on stage, no suit fitting, no green room drama. There was Fernando Mendoza, overcome with emotion, surrounded by the people who made him. But to understand why this moment hit as hard as it did, you have to understand where Fernando Mendoza came from. Because this is not the story of a 5-star recruit who was always destined for the top. This is the story of a kid who was ranked the 134th best quarterback in his high school class and was crying on his bed because nobody wanted him. Fernando Gabriel Mendoza V was born on October 1st, 2003. In Boston, Massachusetts, during his father's medical residency. His family's roots trace back generations. His paternal line originally came from Spain, from the municipality of Campanario, Badajoz. From there, they moved to Olvera, then to Cuba, and later to the United States. Growing up in Miami, Mendoza attended Christopher Columbus High School, where he was a notable quarterback. As a quarterback on the football team, he completed 133 of his 203 pass attempts for 1,396 yards and 16 touchdowns with 4 interceptions, while also adding 137 yards and a touchdown on the ground across 2 seasons. He was a team captain, a state championship contender, a campus ministry president, and a community leader who once coordinated a turkey drive that gave 436 turkeys to families in need in Miami-Dade County. But none of that mattered to the recruiting services. Rated as only a 2-star or low 3-star prospect, Mendoza did not attract the attention of top FBS schools for much of his high school career. Despite leading his team to a state championship appearance, over 130 FBS programs looked at the tape and said no. His initial and most notable offers came from smaller Division I programs, including Yale, Penn, and Lehigh. Believing this was his highest ceiling, Mendoza committed to Yale before his senior year. Think about that for a moment. The man who just became the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, the Heisman Trophy winner, the national champion, was once committed to an Ivy League school because that was the best football offer he could get. He was devastated. "I was crying on my bed like, wow, I really want to play college football." Mendoza recalls, "I think I'm better than a lot of these kids, but I'm getting no offers." His mother was the one who kept him steady. Elsa Mendoza, who taught Fernando how to throw a football, was the calming voice telling him the offers would come. She was sure, he was less so. Then came a twist of fate that would change the trajectory of college football. The University of California, Berkeley, Cal, was the only Power 5 school to extend a scholarship offer to Mendoza, and it came very late in the cycle after another quarterback decommitted. Cal had a spot open because their previously committed quarterback flipped to UCLA. Mendoza was essentially a replacement option, a backup plan. He didn't care. This was the single solitary FBS Power 5 offer Mendoza received from over 130 eligible programs. Driven by the burning desire to compete at the highest level, Mendoza swiftly flipped his commitment to Cal. When he told his mom, her response was pure Elsa Mendoza. "When I got in first at Cal, Elsa was like, 'You're going to do great. You're going to help turn that program around.'" Meanwhile, Fernando's own assessment of himself at the time was far more modest. "I'm like, I don't even know I'm on the sideline here. I don't even know if I can play. These guys are moving so fast." Mendoza redshirted during the 2022 season. He didn't see the field. He sat. He learned. He waited. Then in 2023, he began forcing his way up the depth chart. After redshirting his first year in Northern California, he was thrust into the starting role mid-season in 2023, showcasing his toughness by completing 63.0% of his passes for 1,708 yards and 14 touchdowns. By 2024, he owned the starting job. In 2024, he won the job outright, passing for over 3,004 yards with 16 touchdowns. He was good, setting records at Cal, earning weekly conference honors, becoming only the 9th quarterback in school history to surpass 3,000 passing yards in a single season. But Cal was going 6-7 in both of his starting seasons. He knew he could do more. He knew there was more somewhere else. Then, in December 2024, he entered the transfer portal, and everything changed. When Fernando Mendoza hit the transfer portal in December 2024, he had options that would have stunned the recruiting services that once ignored him. Georgia wanted him, Missouri wanted him. Some of the biggest blue blood programs in America came calling. For a kid who had once been committed to Yale, Cal transfer quarterback Fernando Mendoza has committed to Indiana, sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel. The 6'5", 225-pound redshirt sophomore was one of the most coveted quarterbacks available in the transfer portal and committed to the Hoosiers on Tuesday. He chose Indiana, not Alabama, not Georgia. Indiana. The reasoning was characteristically Mendoza, meticulous, thoughtful, and deeply rooted in family. When discussing his transfer, Mendoza said he viewed Indiana as the best place for growth, choosing the program over blue bloods like Georgia and Missouri, because Cignetti promised to turn him into the best Fernando Mendoza possible. There was another layer to this decision that made it even more personal. Another reason why Mendoza decided to go to Bloomington was his younger brother, Alberto, who was already a redshirt freshman quarterback at Indiana. "My brother was here. He knows all the intricacies of the school, the goods, the bad, the excellent." Mendoza said playing alongside his brother was not just a nice footnote. It was a driving force. "Playing with my brother in college football is something that, when I'm 60 years old, I'm able to look on and take great fulfillment in. Alberto and I play football not for ourselves, not for fulfillment and satisfaction of ourselves. We have a lot of whys why we do it for. One of the whys is our mom, Another why is our entire family. Our entire family comes from a Cuban background. The combination of Coach Curt Cignetti's system, his brother's presence, and the promise of genuine quarterback development made Indiana the pick. Coach Curt Cignetti and the Hoosiers were seeking a proven successor to sixth-year senior starter Curtis Rourke. Following their first ever college football playoff appearance, Cignetti had just engineered one of the greatest single-season turnarounds in college football history, taking Indiana from 3-9 to 11-2 and a college football playoff appearance in 2024. Now he was about to add a quarterback who would turn a Cinderella story into a full-blown dynasty run. And it did not take long for the results to speak for themselves. What Mendoza did in the 2025 season at Indiana was nothing short of historic. In the last 5 months, Mendoza led the Indiana Hoosiers to their first national championship in program history, a perfect 16-0 record, to the university's first Big Ten football title since 1967. The statistical dominance was staggering. Mendoza led the FBS in passing touchdowns, 41, and ranked third with a 72% completion rate at Indiana. He set virtually every meaningful passing record in Indiana history. First in Indiana single-season passing touchdowns, 41, and first in Indiana single-season pass completion percentage, 72.0%. He wasn't just the best player at Indiana. He was the best player in all of college football. In addition to taking home the Heisman Trophy, he was named a consensus first-team AP All-American, the Walter Camp Award winner as the nation's top player, the Davey O'Brien Award winner, nation's top QB, and the Maxwell Award winner, nation's top player. He was the Big Ten Conference Offensive Player of the Year and QB of the Year, and named first-team All-Big Ten. Indiana's coach, the man who had promised to make him the best version of himself, was watching something extraordinary unfold. I cannot say enough about the job that he has done in terms of dedicating himself, to the process of improvement. Cignetti said about Mendoza, "He has come such a long way since we got him from Cal, but I still think that he has barely scratched the surface of his potential. I think that much of him." That quote should terrify every defensive coordinator in the NFL. The college football world fell in love with Fernando Mendoza on the field, but the moment that defined who he is happened at a podium on the night he won the Heisman Trophy. Fernando Mendoza has repeatedly spoken about how much his family, particularly his mom Elsa Mendoza, means to him. The former Indiana Hoosiers quarterback gave his mom, who lives with multiple sclerosis and uses a wheelchair, a sweet shout-out in his speech when he accepted the Heisman Trophy. Standing at that podium, holding the most prestigious individual award in college football, Fernando Mendoza looked at his mother and said, "Mommy, this is your trophy as much as it is mine. You've always been my biggest fan. You're my light. You're my why. You're my biggest supporter." As both mom and son became emotional, he added, "Your sacrifices, courage, love, those have been my first playbook, and the playbook that I'm going to carry by my side through my entire life. You taught me that toughness doesn't need to be loud. It can be quiet and strong. It's choosing hope. It's believing in yourself when the world doesn't give you much reason to. Together, you and I are rewriting what people think is possible." Elsa Mendoza's story adds an entire dimension to Fernando's journey that goes far beyond football. She wrote in a message published on the Players Tribune, she said she didn't want Fernando Mendoza and his brother Alberto Mendoza to worry about her diagnosis. For years, she hid the severity of her condition from her sons. "It wasn't until 5 years ago when I got COVID that things started to go downhill in a way where there was no more hiding it," said Elsa Mendoza. But Fernando never flinched. Elsa reflected on this in her own letter, published in the Players Tribune, just days before the draft. "But you've made it so much easier, and you've done that in the sweetest, strongest, most Fernando way possible by making me feel the exact opposite of embarrassed. You've made me feel seen." She also wrote about something that would resonate with any parent, watching their child face adversity. "You've always kept that same spark in your eye. No matter what kind of state I've been in or day I've been having, you've never once looked away. You've never once treated me like I'm embarrassing or deficient or anything other than someone you love and are standing by." When Mendoza spoke about what fuels him, there was no ambiguity. "Resilience comes from my mom," Fernando told Eisen. "My mom struggles with multiple sclerosis, also known as MS, and I see her fighting every single day and with a smile on her face. So there's no excuse for me to have a bad day, bad play, or bad game. I'm always trying to have an optimistic approach, give the best, serve the best I can to my teammates. This is a young man who created menu items at restaurants in his college towns. The Mendoza Burrito at La Burrita in Berkeley, with all proceeds going to multiple sclerosis research. Mendoza is an advocate for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. Mendoza, alongside his brother, has created multiple menu items at restaurants in the towns of the colleges in which they have played. The money raised has gone to multiple sclerosis research. He is also deeply rooted in his Cuban heritage. Fernando made history as one of just 3 Hispanic players who have won the Heisman Trophy. The quarterback was born in Miami, but his grandparents are originally from Cuba, and the mother's influence extended beyond emotional resilience. She neutralized every ounce of underdog mentality that might have held her son back. And like you said, I have been an underdog. However, my mom has never let me think that way, said Mendoza. So when the biggest night of his career arrived, when Roger Goodell was in Pittsburgh and the cameras were hot, and the entire football world was waiting, Fernando Mendoza was exactly where he was supposed to be, in Coral Gables, sitting next to his mother. Because for Fernando Mendoza, there was never really a choice to make. Now, what does all of this mean for the Las Vegas Raiders? After all, they did not pick Mendoza because of his Heisman speech. They picked him because they believe he can be the franchise quarterback they have been desperately searching for. Mendoza also became the first quarterback the Raiders selected with the top pick since Jamarcus Russell in 2007. That comparison hangs like a specter over this franchise. Russell is widely regarded as one of the worst draft busts in NFL history. The Raiders are keenly aware of the ghosts that haunt this type of investment, but the organization made it clear that this pick was not a gamble. It was the culmination of an exhaustive process. Raiders general manager John Spytek laid it out plainly after the selection. We had a great process, and we promised ourselves, the ownership group and the fans, that we would do this the right way. Spytek said on April 23, after the Raiders made the pick, and we did not begin with the end in mind. This was not a coronation, but every step of the way, he kept checking boxes. I saw him 3 times in person, once in the fall and at the playoff games, and he played really well in all those games. When Spytek spoke about Mendoza the person, you could hear the conviction in every word. Just a great person, raised the right way, great family. He's about the right things. It's about his team. It's about winning. It's about doing the right thing, being accountable to the whole organization. It's very little to do with all the accolades he got after they won all those games. He's really smart. He works really hard. This means a lot to him. I don't think that being the first overall pick and winning the Heisman and all the things that he's gotten will change him. Former Indiana teammate Kalon Black offered his own endorsement. Man, well, the Raiders are getting the most talented quarterback that's out there, Black said. Fernando is very detailed. One of my favorite teammates I've ever been around. He's just so humble and so hungry that he always wants better. You can ask anyone on our team. There's no one more detailed than him. I feel like he was one of the main reasons why we were able to take that next step. Being on the team with Fernando was just a blessing. Mendoza joins Joe Burrow and Cam Newton as the only players in the Common Draft era to win the Heisman Trophy and National Championship and be selected first overall in the NFL Draft in the ensuing offseason. That is elite exclusive company. The Raiders have also assembled the infrastructure around Mendoza to give him the best possible chance at success. Beyond just what Kubiak and his staff bring to the table, Kirk Cousins should be a pretty good teacher for Mendoza. As he adjusts to the NFL, wrote the Sporting News' Albert Breer. Raiders minority owner Tom Brady and general manager John Spytek have said numerous times that they believe in not playing a young quarterback right away, making it no sure thing that Mendoza would start week 1. The Raiders signed Kirk Cousins a couple of weeks ago, providing them with a veteran quarterback who can start while Mendoza develops. And then, of course, there's the Tom Brady connection, the childhood idol who is now quite literally his boss. Growing up, Mendoza idolized Tom Brady, helping spawn the young quarterback's steely mentality, crazed preparation, and work ethic. Now the 22-year-old will play for the Raiders' minority owner. When asked about the possibility of playing for Brady, Mendoza kept it real. Tom Brady, he's going to pour into whatever quarterback they take or that they sign, like Kirk Cousins. To have that opportunity would be great. If I get selected by the Raiders, he'd be a boss. So it wouldn't be like how 6-year-old Fernando envisioned it, being best friends. Mendoza becomes the 5th Heisman Trophy winner to be drafted by the Raiders organization, joining Marcus Allen, 1982, Bo Jackson, 1987, Tim Brown, 1988, and Charles Woodson, 1998. That is a list of legends, and the Raiders are betting that Fernando Mendoza will be the next name etched alongside them. The scouting report on what he brings to Las Vegas is encouraging. The 6'4" quarterback brings ideal size and toughness to the position. He boasts fearlessness attacking defenses and the touch and anticipation to feather the ball into tight windows. Mendoza's preparation as a field general is evident, allowing him to win pre- and post-snap. While he owns solid arm talent, it's accuracy and anticipation that mark Mendoza's superpower. His ability to nail slants, digs, crossers, outs, and back shoulder throws with pinpoint accuracy and hit receivers in stride keeps the offense chugging. The Cuban-American is a fearless leader with the intangibles to excel in the NFL. The high-character quarterback brings an ultra-competitive nature, leadership, and poise to the Raiders. But perhaps the most revealing thing about Fernando Mendoza came from his LinkedIn profile. Of all places, Fernando Mendoza announced on LinkedIn he was open to work earlier this year. On Thursday, he will find work as the No. 1 overall pick at the 2026 NFL Draft. In a world of flashy Instagram announcements and TikTok reveals, this quarterback, a business graduate from Berkeley's Haas School of Business, who graduated in 3 years, interned in commercial real estate between training camp sessions, and reads books like Extreme Ownership, posted on LinkedIn that he was open to work. That tells you everything you need to know about who the Las Vegas Raiders just drafted. A kid nobody wanted out of high school, a transfer who chose Indiana over Georgia, a Heisman winner who skipped the draft to sit next to his mother, a man who posted his availability on LinkedIn instead of Instagram. When the phone rang in Coral Gables on Thursday night, and it was Clint Kubiak and John Spytek on the other end, telling him he was a Raider, Mendoza was overcome with emotion. Then he composed himself and told the world exactly what to expect. "I'm just looking forward to getting to work, prove at the next level. College was fantastic. I am so blessed to have that career. But now I step into a great game, the NFL. Looking forward to earning it every single day." The Las Vegas Raiders have been a franchise searching for a savior at quarterback. For nearly 2 decades, they have cycled through names and faces, draft picks and free agent signings, none of whom could stop the bleeding. Now they're placing that hope on a 22-year-old Cuban-American from Miami, whose mother taught him how to throw a football, and whose resilience was forged by watching her fight a disease every single day, with a smile on her face. Fernando Mendoza himself put it simply on social media after the pick was announced. "Let's get to work, Raider Nation. That family living room in Coral Gables is about 1,000,000 miles from the bright lights of Pittsburgh." But that's exactly where this story was always going to begin. Not on a stage, not in front of corporate cameras, but at home with his mom, because that's who Fernando Mendoza is. And that, more than his arm, more than his Heisman, more than his national championship, is what might make him the one who finally turns the Raiders around.